Good morning, world. This is Edward Bevilacqua here on Thursday, December 13th, 2018. I'm just looking at some stuff on the screen here. And here in Las Vegas, it's a beautiful morning. I think no clouds in the sky. There's snow on the mountains, Mount Charleston in the background. Lucky to be alive. We're lucky to be here in one of the 7 great cities of the world. So, but today we're going to be talking about another thought experiment 3 days in a row. This one is on who would you be? If you're not the person you are right now, who would you be? Before we talk about that though, as always, we will do a summary of where we are this week. And this week is week number 2 in our curriculum, Inside Our Skull-Sized Kingdom, which means inside our skull, and how our brain works, ending up in answering the questions, who am I and why do I behave the way I do? So we use a Clarksworth law, avoidance of Clarksworth law approach to that those questions, which means Clarksworth law, for every expert, there's an equal and opposite expert. And so we don't want our answers to who am I and why do I behave the way I do to be based upon the opinion of an expert. So we have to take experts out of the equation. So in answering the questions, who am I and why do I behave the way I do, the answer should be something that a typical person, a common person with common knowledge, common ability to understand, could come to the same conclusion. For example, the type of person I'm talking about, if you look up in the sky at 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning in Las Vegas, and there's no clouds in the sky, and the question was, what color does the sky appear to be? A typical person would say blue. Okay, so that's the level we want to be able to have our questions answered, those 2 questions. Who am I and why do I behave the way I do? Not based upon an expert, just based upon what a typical person could conclude based upon the evidence. And the evidence that we use is by using technology, and that's brain scans. So we want to look and see, how does the brain actually work in answering the questions of who am I and why do I behave the way I do? How does the brain actually work? And the only way to know that is, as Dr. Daniel Amen says, is you have to look. You have to use technology to look. And I think it's commonly accepted that what people who study the brain have learned in the last 5 years is greater than what was known for the whole history of time before that. So in other words, we've learned a lot about the brain in the last 5 years. And I think the pace is increasing as the technology is getting better and as more people are doing more things inside of using technology. So basically, how does the brain work? We look at 3 functions of the brain: the structure of the brain in terms of what it's comprised of, that being neurons, or as Yuval Harari would say, neurons. What they do, what's on them. Then we take the neuron, of which, according to Susanna Herculano, Dr. Susanna Herculano, we have about 86 billion neurons in our skull, with about 10,000 connections each. And what do they do? Well, what's stored on them is information, bits of information, our lived past, our anticipated future, our imagination, and our ability to simulate. And then they do processes to keep us alive and functioning on a non-conscious level. So we look at the neurons, we break them down, take it down a level lower, and look at the construction of a neuron, which would be dendrites. So if a neuron looked like a tree, a dendrite would look like a branch. And then we take it down another level on what's on the dendrites, and that is synapses, which let's say they're kind of like little buds or leaves or something, just that they aren't that, but just for the purpose of continuing the metaphor. And where a leaf on one tree touches a leaf on another tree, that's where kind of everything happens. And so we take it from the synapse down to another level, and we look at the little holes in them, little things in them called vesicles, and then we take that down another layer and say, well, what happens with vesicles? And that's where the neurotransmitters are released that go between the synapses on different neurons. So chemical signals are transferred between synapses on neurons, and then they're converted to electrical signals that operate our brain, as well as the chemical signals. So that's our brain that we mainly focus on is neurons, neurotransmitters, which are the chemicals that make us feel. And then there's another part of our brain located in our brain stem called our reticular activation system, which is crucial to our being able to answer the two questions of who am I and why do I behave the way I do. So we represent this in a circle with 3 equal sized parts, or like a pie with 3 slices out of it. One being the connectome, the description of what it does. Another one being neurotransmitters, and we focus on 7 of them: endorphin, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin on the positive side, and then cortisol, adrenaline, and testosterone as well. And then our reticular activation system we have on our pie as the bottom slice. So we have connectome over on the left, neurotransmitters on the right, and our reticular activation system. That's inside the pie. On the outside of the pie, corresponding to reticular activation system, we have our beliefs. Corresponding to neurotransmitters, our behavior, and corresponding to our connectome on the outside of the pie, we have outcome. And basically, why do I behave the way I do is I start with my beliefs, and my beliefs will trigger the release of neurotransmitters, which will cause me to feel. My feelings affect my behavior, and my behavior affects the outcome. And then the outcome tends to reinforce, or let's just say it has an impact on my beliefs. It probably will most likely, or more commonly, would reinforce my beliefs. So in answering the questions, who am I, we look at the inside of the pie, and why do I behave the way I do, we look at the outside of the pie. So my beliefs lead to my behavior, which leads to the outcome, which then tends to reinforce my beliefs. And it's basically that simple. And this is based upon looking at how the brain works in studies that people have done by putting people in fMRI machines and SPECT imaging, etc. So this is week 2. This is almost the end of week 2 we have today, and then tomorrow is our quiz day. So today we have inside our school site, day 4 of Inside Our School-Sized Kingdom. It's kind of to wrap it up. We'll be talking about the connectome in Reno. Today we're going to finish Simon Sinek's discussion about neurotransmitters. Why do leaders eat last in Las Vegas? Casa Grande is not in session today because of some Christmas events, but they'll be back tomorrow. And we're in preparation for our installation on January 7th, our next campus, our next classroom. Okay, so thought experiment. Who would you be? So this is kind of not like a who am I, but this is one of our fundamental questions, but who would I be? And, you know, I think if we take a few minutes to think about who would I be, if I'm not the person I am now, who would I be? And of course, we can take that down a negative path, like I could be a lot worse, I could be in jail, I could be dead, I could be, you know, a lot of negative things, but let's put those off to the side, because that's probably, at least initially, not going to help us to become successful. However, we could do the Jordan Peterson approach. We would do the Jordan Peterson approach, which is the, here's where I want to go. Here's the highest goal I could achieve in the next 2 to 3 years. But on the other hand, here's that little hell that's behind me, that if I don't keep moving forward, this thing could catch up with me. So it would be valuable to, at a later point, go back and think about who would I be on the negative side. But for right now, this thought experiment, this short, quick little thought experiment, let's focus on who would I be if I wasn't the person I am now. And like most things, the more thought you put into it, the better that's going to work out. So I would think in terms of who would I be. Maybe one simple, quick breakdown would be physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Who would I be in those 4 categories? Who would I be physically? Most people would say I would like to be in better shape, better health. Who would I be mentally? Smarter, more knowledgeable. Who would I be emotionally? More stable, probably. Well, not me, but more stable, emotionally more stable, maybe more caring, maybe me, and whatever the other attributes are that are important. But I think those are some to think about. And then spiritually, turns out, based upon some of the teachings of Immanuel Kant, that there is a practical reason to be spiritual. It might not be true, but there's a practical reason, and I would say it's turning out to be more the case that religion, spirituality, is on the Yuval Harari description end of the spectrum, that it's a fictional story that was created by us so that we could cooperate flexibly in large numbers of people. Because no matter what your religion is, there's at least 6 out of every 7 people in the world who thinks that your belief, your religious beliefs, your spiritual beliefs are false. Considering, say, 1/7 of the world population are Catholics, and 1/7, almost 1/7 are Muslims, and then you have Buddhists, Hindus, other Christians, atheists, everyone else. The best case, 1 out of every 7 people in the world believes what you believe spiritually. And so that's not really very good odds. And of course, everybody believes that they're right. That's a Clark's fourth law problem, by the way. So, but it's turning out to look more and more like Yuval Harari is correct, that religion and spirituality is something that we believe to be true. And because we believe it to be true, our behavior follows that belief, and the outcome follows that belief, and the outcome then supports our initial belief. But it looks like it's not actually true, because when they put people in fMRI machines, it turns out that no matter what your religion is, your brain looks pretty much the same when you're in a state of, let's just say, ecstasy. Anyway, that's getting off into the weeds. For our purposes, there is a very practical reason to be spiritual. It gets you to behave better, and the outcome will thus be better. So, again, who would you be? And a good way to break this down, and Jordan Peterson would say to write it down, would be to break it down into those 4 components. Who would I be physically? Who would I be mentally? Who would I be emotionally? And who would I be spiritually? And then you can then extrapolate that to what would the outcome be. And I could say, well, financially, it would be this. Here's where I would live. Here's how I would. Here's the results of those beliefs and the behavior associated with those beliefs. Here would be the outcome of that. So now, if we focus on the reticular activation system for a second, we go to Mark Dawes, who in his talk that we watched on Monday was our self-image is made up of nothing more than our self-beliefs. We are who we believe we are. And we are who we believe we are because our reticular activation system starts with our belief. Like, let's say I believe I'm dumb. Well, I mean, I always have this little voice in my head that's saying, yep, you're dumb. Yep, you did it again. Yep, this is a waste of time. You can't do it. You're not good enough. I'd have all of these negative little thoughts. This little voice in my head would be telling me these little negative thoughts only because I started from the belief that I'm dumb. And my reticular activation system is going to be scanning all information available to me to support my belief. So if I believe I'm dumb, and something comes to my awareness of acting dumb, that will trigger the release of a neurotransmitter, in this case, probably cortisol. And maybe if it's really dumb, maybe some adrenaline or a lot of adrenaline. And when that happens, when cortisol is released in my system, stress hormone, my behavior will be impacted. And based upon my behavior, the outcome will be impacted. So if I start with the belief that I can't type, as I'm typing along, I'll make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes when they type. It's just the frequency that's different. Everybody makes mistakes when they type. But if I have a belief that I can't type, when I make a mistake, a little voice in my head is going to say something like, see, you can't type, or this is stupid, this is futile, I don't want to do this anymore. And that then will trigger the release of a neurotransmitter, in this case, cortisol. And cortisol is going to affect my behavior. It's going to make me perform less well, so my behavior is going to be bad, and the outcome is I'm going to make more mistakes. One remedy to that is what Carol Dweck from Stanford says, is to have a growth mindset and just to add the word yet after I can't type. I can't type yet. Well, if you think about that for a second, I can't type yet has a completely different meaning than I can't type. I can't type yet means it infers that one day I will be able to type. I just have to keep working at it. So then if I believe I can't type yet, the little voice in my head is going to say, yep, one day you will be able to type, keep going. And so the little voice, when I make a mistake, is going to say, hey, okay, no problem. Or, you know what, you went 2 more characters without making a mistake. Hey, you're getting better, keep going. That's what's going to happen. So what we know from Mark Dawes, well, what Mark Dawes said is, our self-image is made up of nothing more than our self-beliefs. And why not just be the person you want to be? Most of us are the person that we believe we are based upon what other people told us many, many, many years ago, like when we're kids. We have adopted those beliefs, and the outcome has been consistent with those beliefs, but the outcome is consistent with the beliefs because our reticular activation system brings up information to support those beliefs, and then that triggers the release of neurotransmitters. So it could be a downward spiral. It could also be an upward spiral too. And if you look at people who are good athletes or who are smart, they believe they're smart. They believe they're good athletes. One day when they were a little kid, when they were an infant just coming out of the womb, they weren't a good athlete. They weren't smart at that point. But at some point, something happened that got them to believe, I can do this. I can figure this out. I can be smart. I can hit the ball. I can do whatever it is. And then they had that belief, which triggered the release of other neurotransmitters like, say, endorphin or dopamine, I'm going to do this, or serotonin, I am good at this, or oxytocin of, I'm here to help you. We can do this together type of thing. The release of those changed my behavior to be positive. And then the outcome was positive. And then that outcome reinforced the belief that, hey, I can do this. Hey, I am good. Which then created an upward spiral. So if I believed I could do something, my reticular activation system is going to be scanning all information to support that belief. Something will come into my awareness. Jordan Peterson would would say, probably say, that will actually pull you towards that belief, and that other things, the negative side or other parts of that, will just disappear. You won't even see them physically, won't physically see them. And so I won't see them. I'll be aware of the positive things to support my beliefs. I won't see the negative things to support my beliefs. I'll release neurotransmitters. That will trigger the release of neurotransmitters in my brain that are consistent with my positive belief. And those neurotransmitters, so let's say Amy Cuddy talking about testosterone, feeling more confident. The release of testosterone in my system will make me feel more confident, and my behavior will improve, will be better than if it was cortisol, and the outcome will be better. And that outcome will then support my belief that, hey, I can do this. So it becomes an upward spiral. Okay, so what's the takeaway? What's the takeaway from all this? Well, the takeaway, I think, is very simply, number one, stop all negative self-talk. It's kind of a Kerry Green moment here. Stop all negative self-talk, because that's going to trigger the release of negative, of neurotransmitters in your brain that isn't going to make your performance better, probably, like cortisol. Stop all negative self-talk. Use reinforcing talk or growth mindset talk. I can't do this yet, or one day I will. I'm not going to quit. Navy SEALs, right? When they're drill instructors constantly urging them to just go tap the bell, that they're not going to make it, is to turn that thought instead of into a belief that it's true. Yeah, I can't make it. Yeah, I'm not going to be a Navy SEAL. Instead of accepting someone else's belief, I accept my own belief that I can make it, and then I figure out ways to have a belief that will release the neurotransmitters I need so that I have the behavior I want. So let's say you're a Navy SEAL, you're out in the surf, your arms are locked with other Navy SEALs, the water's freezing, you've been doing it for a couple hours, you're out there jackhammering, meaning shivering so much that you look like you're holding a jackhammer. You're out there jackhammering, and if your belief is, I can't take it, what's the result likely to be? Well, let's break it down again. So if you believe you can't take it, the little voice in your head is going to be saying that you can't take it. You're going to be jackhammering a lot. You're not going to be able to see the end. So that's kind of a Viktor Frankl, Nietzsche type of thing. There's no why. You can't see the how, or you can't see the why to keep doing it. And then all of a sudden, the belief sets in. Physically, maybe you just become exhausted, you can't handle it, you pass out or whatever, or you just voluntarily get, I can't make it. And then you tap out, versus your same guy right next to you, who has this belief of, I'm going to embrace the suck. And the more it sucks, the more I'm going to embrace it, because, you know, this is life. And this is the ups and downs of life. And this is how many other people get the opportunity to actually be out here jackhammering to become a Navy SEAL. Boy, am I lucky to be doing this. And I know other people have made it before, otherwise they wouldn't do this. I'm not going to die. And I think I can make it for the next minute. I just got to get through one more minute, and then another one more minute. And, or I got to take my mind off of it. I got to be thinking I'm somewhere else, you know, mentally transport myself somewhere. And those will release the neurotransmitters, which maybe it's endorphins, masking physical pain, or dopamine, massive amounts of dopamine, that I'm going to get through this task. I'm going to get through this revolution. Or serotonin of, hey, you know, pride. Or oxytocin, that, you know, I'm part of this, this team here, and this is building us up to be superhuman people. So the takeaway, number one, stop all negative self-talk. Number two, give yourself the talk. Use words that are going to support the person you want to be. And most importantly, number three is figure out, well, who do I want to be? And then, as Mark Dawes says, just be that person. Just be the person you want to be. Don't listen to the, well, I'm not that person, I can't be that person. You know, if you go back and say, well, a 5-year-old, what are my skill levels? If I want to be a great golfer, what were Tiger Woods' golf skills when he was 5? How long would it take me to have those golf? Okay, say 3. How long would it take me to have the golf skills of Tiger Woods when he was 3? All right, great. So in 10 years, he went from that to being really good, winning tournaments. And, if he could do it, I could do it. In fact, it should take me a lot less time because I have more coordination than he did. The difference is he didn't start with negative belief baggage. But we learned from Aaliyah Crum, that it only takes that long to change a belief. I just have to drop my old belief. So anyway, that's it for today. Tomorrow's another day. Drop negative self-talk. Just be the person that you want to be.